We've been talking a lot of goalies here. I think it's time to talk a little fantasy hockey goalies for the 2024-25 season there. You see you got some of the top candidates there, Igor Shesterkin, Jake Ettinger, Jeremy Swayman, and Connor Hellebuck, of course, the defending Vezina winner. So let's get that off the screen there. Let's get this on the screen, and let's talk so who we're going to put at number one. Now, Connor Hellebuck tends to be the, consensus number one here. I think I'm okay with that. He's not who I have at number one on my list, but I'm okay putting him there. Who do you guys have as your number one goaltender?
We're talking about regular season for fantasy hockey, and I have to stick with Connor Hellebuck. Top 3 games started, top 2 in wins and saves, and the Jets led the league in save percentage. And he's most of that goaltending in net that whole season. So I got to go Connor Hellebuck there at number one.
Gonna get the workload.
I went with Igor Shesterkin. I felt like that was just the play. I get how good Connor Hellebuck is. I want to trust the Jets, right? And I mean, Hellebuck will prove you wrong every day of the week, right? But I'm worried about the workload. I'm worried about how much he has to play. I don't know with the coaching change now. Like there's a little bit. There's a couple of question marks. And if I'm taking the first goalie off the board, I'm taking a stud, like an absolute stud where there's no setback, where I don't have to worry about anything, and there's no question marks in my mind, and that is Igor Shesterkin. He plays on the best team in the division, loaded up front, very good defensively. I don't know how good Jonathan Quick's going to be, but if Jonathan Quick, let's say, stumbles a little bit, then they're just going to pump Igor out there a ton. So he's going to play a ton of games. I'm okay with it. I like the Rangers over the Jets, so that's my.
We're forgetting one key point here, because I also have Igor Shesterkin as my number one, and this is the deciding factor over Connor Hellebuck. Contract year. Can't forget about the contract year.
Contract year, yeah. If he wants to make 15 mil, he's going to need one of those Vezina style seasons. Oh, contract year, lock him in 1.
All right, so Igor Shesterkin wins out 2-1 there. So next up, I would agree, if Anthony's got Connor Hellebuck number 1, who do you got number 2? Because I've got Hellebuck number 2. I am very okay putting him as the second best goaltender.
I have
for fantasy purposes.
I have Jake Ottinger. I like I get the Dallas Stars. Like, yes, the loss of Joe Pavelski is one thing, but Wyatt Johnson's right there, and the Dallas Stars they're just good. Right? They're just good. I know it wasn't a great year for Jake Ottinger, but he was still a top fantasy goalie. So let's use the term loosely. He bounces back, right? To me, he's right there. If somebody, I would put him 2, and I would have no issues looking at that. I think Jake Ottinger can go 2. Connor Hellebuck there as well would be fine. I just have Ottinger as 2 because I just think the situation for him is a little bit better.
And who did you have? So you had Connor Hellebuck number 1. Who did you have as your second?
I had UC Saros at number 2. Tops in games started and in saves. He's got a new contract. He's got a better team in front of him, and Nashville's ready to roll this season. They did all these big signings in the offseason, so I think it's going to be that. I had UC Saros at number 2.
All right, we've got a debate here a little bit earlier than I thought. So who are we plugging in that second hole? UC Saros, Connor Hellebuck, or Jake Ottinger?
I feel it has to be Connor Hellebuck, no, because I had him at number 1.
I would be okay. You can sway my vote to have Connor Hellebuck at 2. That is fine with me. I will accept that.
I would have been okay with Hellebuck or Jake Ottinger there, although I did move Saros up in my standings for sure. So we're gonna go with Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg there. He's gonna get only 1 vote this time. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how many times we get, if we get any sort of consensus picks there. So, okay. So now at 3, you had Jake Ottinger second. I had Jake Ottinger third. Ant's got UC Saros second. Who did you have third?
I had Connor Hellebuck at third.
Okay. And
I had Ottinger at number 3.
So I think we got 2 votes, and plus he's the second place vote for Chris. We both got him in third. I think that's a fair place to put Mr. Ottinger. And yeah, so we've got 3 goalies in the books here for our top rankings. No real surprises so far. Maybe Shesterkin over Hellebuck a little bit, but not too much there. So 4th place on the list here. So we still have UC Saros sitting out there with the high vote. I did have Saros 5th. Who I put 4th? Jeremy Swayman. Really good team. Played really well in the playoffs of the Bruins. It's not going to be like an every other day thing like Linus Ullmark. Now, yeah, he's got to prove himself that he's, a 70-30 goalie, but, I don't worry about Eunice Corpusalo stealing too many starts from him. He's just going to be the guy they trot out to give Swayman a break. I think they've improved. They added Zadorov. They added Lindholm to give him a little more center depth, which is something we've criticized about the Bruins in the past. I've got Swayman 4, but I recognize that might be a little bit high.
Yeah, that's way too much confidence in a goalie that is not the traditional starter, right? He's not Connor Hellebuck. I want to see a little bit more from him. I want to see a little bit more from the Bruins as well. I want to see a little bit more from Jeremy Swayman before I'm investing a top pick. I think last year in fantasy, a lot of people were comfortable knowing the split they were going to get because they were both elite. Now you're going to get a case of where he plays more and you're like, hey, does that help him? Right? Because even if Corpusalo gets more starts and he does well, that's fine. I'll take the quality of starts from Jeremy Swayman, but I don't know in the 4-hole. I have Ilya Sorokin. He was the top goalie off the board 1 year ago. And look, the New York Islanders are as boring as it gets as a hockey team, but they also went out to get Patrick Watt, who somebody understands the goaltending position. It's him. And I think that team, the Islanders, and their identity is defense first. This is not a team that's going to score goals. This is also a team that cannot give up that many shots. They were so poor defensively, giving up way too many scoring chances. I can't believe that will exist again. I don't know if Patrick Waugh is going to turn it around, really, but Ilya Sorokin kind of feels a little bit like peak John Gibson and peak Carey Price. Great goalie, absolutely miserable hockey team. So if you're in a league that counts wins, it's going to be tough for Ilya Sorokin. It's going to be tough to pick up wins. And Semyon Varlamov got a lot of starts. And we know Patrick Waugh just does what he wants a little bit, right? He's a roller coaster. That's why I had him 4 here. But that to me feels like a discount. If I can get Ilya Sorokin, if he's in my book at 4, he's on the turn from 2 into 3 as my first goalie, depending on who my first 2 picks were. I'm okay with that.
See, I've got Sorokin on a top 10, but he's a little bit lower there. So you got Sorokin 4, Ant. What do you got?
See, I don't have Sorokin in my top 10. I think he really disappointed me last season. You said this Islanders team is defense first, right? I mean, he wasn't even better than Varlamov.
At times, yeah, Varlamov became the guy for them.
And even with Patrick Waugh, did we see any difference from Sorokin? Maybe this year it comes into play, but I don't know. I did not have him in my top 10. I will say this, and this is not a fandom thing. This is not also, I did not put into account the contract that he was going to be a free agent, but I did have Igor Shesterkin at 4. I just think that this Rangers team is running out of time, and they made no improvements to make themselves better into this season. And I don't know. I think it's going to come back to hurt them this season. Maybe Shesterkin plays to the best of his ability, and maybe it is on the contract. I just had him 4th. So I would have had him higher if I remembered about him being a free agent in the offseason, but I had him at 4. Doesn't matter. You guys have had a 1 anyway.
State of Survival tuning in. Thanks as always. Sorokin was overplayed. They wore him out. Also, the Islanders are going to be playing more of an offensive system under Patrick Waugh. Bad season, and he gets a .912 save percentage. Very fair point there by Sorokin. All right, so time to decide who we're putting 4th. I got Sorokin a little bit lower. Chris has him at 4. Ant doesn't have him in the top 10. I had Swayman there. I could be swayed. What do we think about UC Saros being our number 4 goaltender because of the Nashville improvements? He was already a really good goaltender, but because they were kind of like a wild card team or maybe a third place team, now he's got a better team in front of him. So I had him at 5th. I'm okay putting him at 4th now.
I don't
also
even
had
think
him
they
at
had
5th.
him in the playoffs, right? I don't think anyone had Nashville going to the playoffs this last season.
I certainly didn't.
Yeah.
I had them on the cusp as a wild card team. So all right. So we're gonna put UC Saros there, and he got how many fourth place votes? None, but he got 2 5th place and a 3rd place. So
If
we'll
you're
say
reaching on Saros, though, just be ready to be disappointed, right? It's one of those things where you strap in understanding it's a roller coaster and you know what you're getting in, okay? You're going to McDonald's. Do not expect 5-star cuisine, right? You know what you're in there with there, right? I get that the team is better, but we've seen teams go out, get better, and then not be better. So also don't forget, young kid waiting in the, everybody thought UC Saros was going to end up somewhere else. And now all of a sudden he's,
they're going to trade Askarov. They're not going to hold on to him. Maybe
Maybe.
they do. They'll hold on to him as long as they can, but you signed the goalie for 8 years.
But I feel like maybe the leash is a little bit shorter, right? If you have a kid who you can show off, right? Because if he's not playing, you're going to have a hard time selling me on needing a 1st-round pick and a top-round prospect. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Even the Panthers waited a couple of years on that long contract before they went out and got Spencer Knight. So, we'll see. So those are our top 4. Now we got to place 5th. I already said I had Saros there. Swayman was my 4th place goalie. We got Sorokin still on the board. What did we have for 5th place goaltenders here?
There was no way that I was going to do a top 5 and not include the goalie that went to back-to-back Stanley Cup championships and has finally won one with Florida. I know that the workload is high. That's probably my biggest concern is the fact that they went to back-to-back Stanley Cups and now he's got all his games and minutes logged in here. But I have to put Bobrovsky at number 5.
I had him down at 8. And I think this is the last year where he's going to get a heavy amount of starts, and then they'll start to work Spencer Knight in maybe this year, but I think next year maybe is when you see more of that 50-50 split as a transition. So I don't have a problem with Bobrovsky being 5th, but like you pointed out, the amount of hockey he's played over the last couple of years is a concern for me.
I had Saros at 5. Are we just going to forget that Sorokin exists? We're
not going to forget. I had him at 10. Anthony didn't have him there.
I forgot about him.
This was the number 1 goalie off some boards last year.
Sorokin. We'll increase his stock a little there. Okay. Yeah, and I agree. I don't know if he should fall that far for one, we'll say a couple
They just pointed out, by the way, a bad year and a .912 save percentage. .912 is good today in the modern hockey, considering how many goals are scored. .912, it's not elite, but it's good on a bad year. Okay. There are some goalies nowhere near .912.
All right, so we'll put Sorokin 5th. Now we're down to 6. We still got Jeremy Swayman on the board. The person I had at 6 is Jacob Markstrom, vastly improving his situation. Now I understand Jake Allen's there. He's a veteran. They're going to play him. They want to keep Markstrom fresh for the playoffs, but I think just going to playing the way he played, and now he's going to a team that's going to score goals in front of him and win more games. I think his stock has bumped him up enough that he could be a 6th place goaltender. But of course, I still got Swayman at 4, so I'm happy to put him here at 6. What do you guys got?
At 6, I had to put the goalie we've been just talking about for most of this show here, and who I think is the best in that conference we just talked about. I got Thatcher Demko at number 6.
All right. And Chris?
I actually had Jacob Markstrom at 6 for all the reasons you pointed out. He's going to, much improved team. I'm not worried about Jake Allen. Jake Allen has been part of these like 2- and 3-headed monsters. So you don't go out and get Jacob Markstrom to sit him, right? You go out to get him so he can be part of the solution, right? So I feel like he's going to play a lot, and it's up to him to figure it out, right? New team. I don't know how good the Devils are defensively. If they're healthy, shouldn't be a problem. If the Devils possess the puck, you don't have to worry about goaltending. If you possess the puck, the Devils are a high possession team. They need it because they have a lot of skilled players. So I'm perfectly fine with him being there.
So do we put Sergei Bobrovsky at 7? Do we put Jeremy Swayman at 7? Do we have an alternate candidate that I'm not thinking about at 7? Andre Vasilevsky is who I had at 7 in my ranking, so I'm going to throw his name out there because he's going to get the bulk of the starts. So what are we thinking here for our 7th ranked goaltender?
I have Swayman at 7.
I also have Swayman at 7, but then again, I also had, Bobrovsky and Demko 5, 6, but I guess, if all three of us have Swayman at 7, then it's, consensus.
Where he belongs.
Yep.
See, I had him at 4. So yeah, if you two have him at 7 and I got him a little higher, yeah, we got to put him down there. All right. So we got Jeremy Swayman and you got 2 votes for that. So, okay. Still got Bobrovsky on the board. Got Vasilevsky on the board. We got Demko on the board. This is where I had Bobo. So what are we thinking here? Any other 8th place candidates that we should be throwing in the mix? Maybe a Stuart Skinner. I don't know.
I do. I'm going to say this, and I hate it. And I don't want to hear I don't want a single tweet from a Leafs fan saying I haven't given you anything. I have Joseph Wall.
I had him on the list, and then I took him off for Sorokin.
I had Joseph Wall. I had Joseph Wall on the list. I'm going to tell you why. Toronto is not better defensively. They are not about defense. But Joseph Wall has proven that he can play. Now the question is staying healthy, and there is no competition in Toronto for that spot. It's him or it's nobody. It's not Matt Murray. It's not, Stolarz. It's nobody. It's Joseph Wall, and that's it. And Toronto is still a very good team that can play. I know, no sample size, but this is one of those things where we just kind of throw some darts here, right? If Toronto can be a decent team with all the terrible goaltenders that have been part of that franchise before, I'm sure Joseph Wall, to me, is the goalie with the most upside. Some of you were drafting Ilya Samsonov early. So if you were one of those people who were willing to take Ilya Samsonov, you cannot come to me now and say, no, we can't take Joseph Wall because sample size is this, or we don't know if he's good enough because you took the others. And we were, and you got burned, as you should have. But Toronto's going to score goals. So at worst, Joseph Wall becomes Alexander Gorgiev, kind of. And a lot of you are willing to draft him, right? So
if you're a league that values wins as well, Wall's going to get them. So that if you have a win premium league, then that that improves his stock too. I'll put him in the last 3. I don't know if I'm ready to put him at 8 when I still got a Bobrovsky and a Demko out there.
I looked at my screen for about 30 seconds at Joseph Wall, and then I was like, nah, I can't put him in the top 10. But I see Chris's strategy here. He's softening up the Toronto fans so that during the season he can hit them hard and he can get at them.
Look,
I see the strategy.
Ilya Samsonov last year played 40 games, 23, 7, and 8, 890 save percentage, 313 goals against average. He might be who sits next to he might be the COO of the Martin Jones fan club, because those are some outrageously terrible numbers. But again, he gets wins. So if you're in a league that rewards it, you shouldn't. But if you are, you can't tell me that you can't take the risk on Joseph Wall. Can't tell me you're not willing to do it. It's not great. And I will gladly let him slide, right? If he's going too early, let it rip. You know what I mean? If all of a sudden you see the goalie run start and Joseph Wall is there, you can pass on it. We don't have to take the entree. But I'm just saying it's really hard for you to defend saying I was willing to take other goalies when Joseph Wall has the most upside here. That's what I'm going to
Wall is going to be the
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Wall is going to be the goalie that benefits most from his team and not from obviously he's talented, but he's not on this list going to benefit from his own talent. It's going to be because the rest of Toronto is a pretty decent team.
If he can do both, though, then he's in. You know what I mean? He can finish top 3 as a goalie, but he's got to be good, right? Which I think he can. It's more of a question of health. How many games is he going to play? And that comes down to, well, how healthy can he play, right? If he plays 55 games and he's good, he can be up there in that top 3 in fantasy. He can get there. The floor is it could be a little low, but the ceiling here, exceptionally high. Don't forget, he's got to play Montreal a bunch of times. The Canadians are still the Canadians, right? Ottawa. Oh my God. The Ottawa Senators. Like, imagine having to play them. So there are some games that are like, I know the Atlantic's it's an absolute bloodbath as well. Let's figure out what the Metropolitan is at some point. But I don't know, man. Toronto's got a ton of skill there. If they're running the core four again, this team is looking for some consistency. It's got to be Wool.
All right. So
I will live with Bobrovsky there.
So, all right, we'll live with Bobrovsky here. So it sounds like we got 2 spots and we got 3 goalies we're considering: Andrei Vasilevsky, Joseph Woll, and Thatcher Demko. So now it's time to figure out which one of those 3 you're not going to include there. So we know how Chris feels about Joseph Woll. So that means it's either Demko or Vasilevsky that you're not putting in your top 10, Chris. So who's that going to be?
I don't have Demko in my top 10. I have him at 11. I have him outside of that. I would have no problem putting him 9, though. I would have no problem. I would gladly put there. I have Andrei Vasilevsky at 10.
And Ant, who of those 3?
I had Demko 6. I have Vasilevsky 8. And who's the third?
Joseph Woll, who you didn't have.
I did not have Joseph Woll.
Okay. I can live with having Demko at 9 and Vasilevsky at 10. Vasilevsky has to be a top 10 goalie. I know it's not great in Tampa Bay with all the changes that are happening. What is this team going to look like? Andrei Vasilevsky is elite, and we saw that. They were not as good when he wasn't in the lineup, and when he came back, like, it wasn't all unicorns and butterflies, but I can't imagine him not being a top 10 goalie in fantasy. I just can't.
All right.
Well, to finish off my list, I had Stuart Skinner 9, and I had Jacob Markstrom 10, but you guys already had put him 6. So thank you for that.
So I also had Stuart Skinner in my top 10, but there's no way I'm not. And I had Demko 11. This is what I was going to say about Thatcher Demko. And we've talked about the importance of goalie handcuffing here. That if you have Demko, you have to invade, even if it's a little bit of a reach, you have to go get Shelovs. You cannot or if you're going to go goalie deep and you're going to go with heavy goaltenders early, where you have 3 quality options, and if Demko's out, all right, fine, you're still there. But if you take Demko and you don't get that reliable number 2, then you have to spend the draft capital on Shelovs, because they're going to give him a little bit of an increased workload over an average backup, keep Demko healthy, and there's always the possibility Demko gets hurt. So then you have that built-in security there. I see State of Survival chiming in. Jarry is available. I can't believe he's not on the list. Super top goalie. Varlamov could be argued to be on that list too. And that's another point too. If we talked about Sorokin being in the top 10, it might not hurt to throw a late-round pick on Varlamov. Maybe he's not on your roster in a month or 2, but just in case Sorokin's struggles continue, you have the Islanders. You at least have the Islanders goaltending, and Varlamov played pretty well in front of them last year. So there's our top 10 rankings. We want to know what your top 10 rankings are as well. Hit us up at totalhockeynow@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter. You got all of our handles there. I'm going to get ready to get this next mock draft going here. So
I'm interested in seeing if he puts it in the chat, State of Survival. Who are you replacing, putting Jarry and Varlamov in the top 10 of our list?
I want nothing to do with Tristan Jarry. I want him to fall off. If I believe that the earth was flat, I'd want him to fall off the edge. He's just not it for me.
I put the link to the mock draft that the 3 of us are going to do, but if you want to join in as well, it's there in the YouTube comments, and I'm going to tweet that out right now as well. So fellas, jump on in. I'm going to make sure we spread out the picks. I was in the first 3 last time. Today, I'm going to take the 7 spot there. So somebody go early, somebody go late, so we can dictate the pace of the draft. And that's going to get going here in about 2.5 minutes. We'll keep the results of our top 10 fantasy hockey goalies up there on the screen until we are ready to rock here in the draft. I see Chris also going late again, so Anthony will go early. I'm going to move up to 6 to spread it out just a tad. And then Ant's got to go in one of the first 3 picks. I know we know you were joking about Jarry, buddy. I think we could pick it. Nobody's taking Jarry in their top 15, maybe top 20. We'll see, but he's not top 20. Definitely not top 10. Varley, has to be 9 or 10, and he's got to be in there. He's got to be. Well, I don't know if you could have 2 Islanders goalies on the list. I don't know if I do that. The pairing, yes, but the top 5 pairing, not going to put. I don't know if I could have Sorokin in the top 10 with some other names still there on the board. Let's see here. We got Andy's awesome team jumping in. So maybe he's mocking with us. We are 2 minutes away from entering the draft room and conducting our second mock draft of the summer. Very excited about that. Any goalies on the list that you know, maybe somebody is like a hidden gem? For me, one of those guys is Connor Ingram, because the Utah Hockey Club invested heavily in their blue line in the offseason. So he's going to have better play in front of him. Not saying he's a guy that's you know, I would say maybe you can put him in that 12 to 15 range. That's where I would maybe look at him. But that's a guy that could absolutely you know, maybe outplay his draft value this year.
This room is starting to light up right now. We already got 3 other players in there: Vincent's Spirited Team and Steve's Smart Team. So keep them coming. Whoever wants to join in.
Absolutely, we are, and I'm gonna go on over on Twitter right now, and in the comments, we're gonna put the link in there if you want to participate.
For me, the hidden goalie, I guess, a little bit, Aiden Hill. He's still on a very good hockey team. Now that Logan Thompson is there, again, a question with Aiden Hill is always about health. Can he stay healthy? But now he's got less of a competition. There's none of that split. He was falling in draft boards last season because some individuals were not. They're like, oh, is it Logan Thompson's crease? Is it Aiden Hill's crease? Who else could it be? Aiden Hill's got the net to himself now. So, like, if you trust, here's the thing: if you trust a team to do well, you got to trust their goalie, right? A little bit, unless you're Alexander Gorgiev, in which case that rule does not apply.
Yes.
I forgot to add this with the Shesterkin pick at number 1 here. Another thing that bothered me with putting him so high is that some point in the middle of last season, I'm not saying that Adam was a part of this, but there were Rangers fans that wanted to have what's his name starting instead.
They wanted
Jonathan Quick starting instead, because he was off to a rough patch in the year. He can't afford that this year.
All goalies, all players, like we all play hockey. We all go through those streaks of, like, you know, where you don't score goals or things aren't going your way. It's a long season. We go through adversity, right? Like the Mets. So I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it's par for the course. You're just hoping that adversity is not long, right? You go through that moment where you kind of struggle and you say, okay, let's readjust, pull everything back together, and you get back into it. So to me, at least, yeah, it doesn't worry me. To me, he is in a class of his own. Igor Shesterkin, Connor Hellebuck, and Jake Ottinger for me are like 1A. After that, it's a 1B tier. I don't have to go all out to get a goalie early. If those 3 are on the board in my first 2 rounds, I'm leaving with 1. And ideally, if I can get my hands on 2, like I'm set here. I'm set.